Welcome to the Wealth Matters podcast, where investors come together to better understand how to build passive cash flow and create generational wealth without all the confusing mumbo-jumbo. Here's your host and co-author of Amazon #1 bestseller, Alpesh Pamar.
Welcome to Wealth Matters podcast. I am going to talk to Mr. Todd Thorpe today. Todd is a well-respected multifamily telecom and technology expert with over 30 years of industry experience. For over 20 years, he held various executive leadership positions with Charter Communications, where he grew multifamily sales in the Midwest and Southeast markets by 30%. In early 2020, right before COVID, Todd left Charter and became vice president with MDU Consulting Group, a national firm helping multifamily owners, property management companies, real estate developers, etc., save time and money by leveraging telecom contracts. And I am very interested in this topic because, of course, as you guys know, I also own mobile home parks, small multifamily, and currently investing in a senior housing. So I want to learn how I can generate ancillary income. So welcome, Todd.
Alpesh, thank you, man. Very excited to be on the show. Thank you.
Absolutely. So tell us something interesting or funny about yourself.
Oh gosh, really? You gotta start with that.
Yes.
Something interesting. So I actually went to school. I wanted to be Steven Spielberg. I wanted to be a film director. Yeah. And, life has a funny way of kind of taking a detour. So I work in the cable business, or did, right. I should say. So somewhat related, right?
Yes.
Never fulfilled my dream. But my son, he is kind of following in dad's footsteps. So yeah, he's moving to LA and he's going to pursue his Hollywood dream. So maybe I didn't make it to the Oscars, but maybe my son will someday. Who knows? We'll see.
That's awesome. And good luck to your son. And I never shared that with anyone as well. But growing up, I always wanted to be an actor.
Really?
And I tried, and I was always in dramas and skits, and I became computer engineer, but look at me now, I'm at least have a show, right?
So you're entertaining, right?
Yeah, I'm trying. That's great. So do you personally invest in real estate?
I do not. And, I get asked that a lot. And it's funny because been 30 years in the cable business, 20 of that was in multifamily. So I worked for Charter Communications for almost 20 years and a senior leadership position, selling to multifamily properties, negotiating telecom agreements with multifamily properties on behalf of Charter. And it just never dawned on me. Yeah, I did own a single family home years ago, probably 30 years ago, and had that just for a little bit, but yeah, never got into it. And now I have to say, over the last probably 2 years, it's just exploding. So it is actually on my to-do list. I do want to participate in my first passive investment later this year. I just have a lot of other things I got to do first, but yeah.
So I'll be in touch with you then.
Yes.
Because I still have some mobile home parks and senior housing coming soon.
It is, as your listeners know, and as well, it is a true way to build wealth. Yes. And actually, I'm in my late 50s. I wish I would have, got in and started, 20 years ago, but it's never too late, right? So.
No, it's never too late. And at least you can instill that in your family, right? In your kids, right? So they get started early.
Exactly.
That's what I tell people. If you think you are late, at least, you can start and your family can pick up. Right?
Hey, Colonel Sanders, he was like 80 when he started KFC.
60, 65 or something. Yes. So
That's right.
It's crazy. You can be successful.
Right. Absolutely.
So let's talk about this telecom contracts. What are they?
Oh man, yeah. It's it's crazy. So um, the importance of telecom agreements really took hold probably about, I'd say 10, 15 years ago. And within the last 10 years, they really started to pick up traction. And, because the thought always was the property owner thought, well, the cable company's here, they're providing service,
Right.
why do I need a contract? They're on my property. They've always been around. Same with the phone companies, your AT&Ts and your Verizons and even the Dish. So, the importance of that, though, it really comes into play is because it's private property, right? It's different than a public subdivision. A multifamily property, which includes not only traditional apartments, but senior, student housing, mobile home parks,
Right.
they're all private property. So literally, the provider needs an easement in the form of a contract to literally provide service to have a right of way access through
Oh,
the
yes.
property, right? Through
That is
conduit,
correct.
underground, aerial. So as an owner, you're giving that provider the legal right to be on site to provide services. So you don't want to just let the provider be there without a written permission. And that's
Yeah.
really at the
Yeah, I was
heart of
going
what a
there. So
telecom agreement is.
they need your permission to get the access to conduits or whatsoever, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So don't just turn them loose and let them show up without you as the owner getting something in return financially, but also not just the financial advantage is really peace of mind by knowing that that provider has the right to be there and they're going to adhere to certain standards by operating on your property and not just running amok and doing whatever they want.
I see. Makes sense. So what are the four key ways owners can generate ancillary revenue using telecom contracts?
Okay, so the first is what are called door fees, and those are in the form of upfront compensation to the owner. So you're going to negotiate that contract with the provider, or maybe have a couple of different providers on the premise to provide service. You're going to maybe give them exclusive use of the internal wiring on the property, or maybe you're going to give them exclusive marketing. Typically, a provider's not going to just want to be there without something. Contracts are always kind of a give and take. And
Right, of
one, you
course.
got to be mutual. You have to give up something, the provider gives up something.
Yeah.
So you're going to give them certain access rights to your residents, your tenants on the property, in exchange for some compensation. That first is what's called a door fee. And that is a one-time payment to the owner or the ownership group, the legal entity of that property. And those door fees can be extremely lucrative. They can be as little as, say, $50 a door on up to 400 or more a door. So you're talking,
Wow,
in some cases,
that's significant.
hundreds of thousands of
Yeah, if you
dollars.
have 200 doors, you are looking here at $400. That's like $800,000.
Exactly. That if you don't ask for that, you just left that money on the table. Or maybe the cable operator said, yeah, I'll give you $50 a door. And you're like, okay, that's fine. When you could be asking for a lot more. Now, so that's part of negotiating. When
Okay.
you buy multifamily property, when you buy anything, buy a house, buy a car, right? You negotiate the terms
Yes.
of the deal. You want to negotiate the terms of the deal and not get taken advantage of. So those door fee payments are one-time cash payment to the owner once a contract is executed. And generally it's 60 to 90 days after a contract is executed, the legal entity gets a check from the operator.
I
Take
see.
that money, you keep it, you put it in escrow, you put it towards your property to increase the NOI of the property. You do whatever you want with that money. That money is yours. If you were to sell that property, you're not obligated to give it to the buyer of the property. You'll have to
Oh,
you'll have to disclose that a contract exists when
right.
during the due diligence, but you don't have to share that money. Okay, that's entirely up to you. So that's number one. That's the first way.
So
The
that's
second,
one time, right, Dorothy? That's when you
one
sign the
time.
contract. It's like when you go for a new job. One time you have a chance to negotiate your salary, and that's about it. So
Yeah.
okay,
Sign. That could be your signing bonus, right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
There
yeah. That's one
you go.
time.
And then the second is revenue sharing. That's going to be an ongoing payment that you will receive from the provider.
Oh, I like that. That's recurring.
That's recurring. That's just like your investors getting a dividend, getting that's the reason why you invest in multifamily, right? Is not only for the investment itself, but to get those
Cash flow.
payments
Yep.
quarterly, that the distribution. So it works very similar to that. So the provider will pay a percentage of the gross revenue that they're receiving from the property. So provider A is providing video, internet, and maybe landline phone service to your property. And tenants don't have to take the service, but if it's one provider, maybe two, they don't have a lot of choice. So they subscribe to those services. Then the provider will, and you're incented. Normally, there is an exclusive marketing arrangement attached to those,
Right.
because they want the property owner to have some skin in the game and promote that service.
Oh yes.
Because the more customers they get, the
You
more
get-
money you're going to make. Right.
Right.
So let's say it's 8% of the gross revenue. So you as the provider will receive a quarterly, typically they're quarterly revenue share checks dispersed for the term of the agreement now from that provider. And revenue share is not as lucrative as your upfront door fee payments.
Right.
And time value of money, usually you want the money up front versus
Yes.
over time, but it's still important. And again, if you don't know to ask these things, the providers typically aren't going to just offer all of this stuff up. So you're going to want to make sure that you're asking for each one of these components in some combination or all four, because they all add up after time. So, and again, depending on the size of the property, the revenue share checks obviously would be more. If you have a 50 unit property versus a 500 unit property, more residents, more revenue, higher your revenue share check will be.
Yeah, and let me add one point to that if you are getting that recurring revenue, that also adds to the cap rate value, right? So because there will be
Correct.
higher NOI. So when you're trying to sell as well, you're going to be able to sell it at a higher price or higher valuation.
Absolutely. That's a very, very critical point, that you want to make sure you're factoring all of this in. It's not just putting money in your pocket through the revenue share. It's increasing the NOI of the property to make it more valuable.
Absolutely.
So especially when you exit, right?
Yeah. That's exactly what, most of the syndicators or operators are trying to do, exit in 5 to 7 years, right?
There you
So
go.
you want to have recurring revenue, and you can show or at least prove that it's been happening for at least last 2-3 years, then you can easily count that in the NOI.
Yep.
So what is the third way then?
Third way is not a direct cash payment like a door fee or a revenue share. It's a little bit more of an indirect payment, but it's courtesy services or complimentary services that they call them. So you should be receiving a certain level of free video, free TV, free internet service from the provider in exchange for letting them on the property. How that could work is, say you have a leasing manager that lives
Right.
on site. You have a maintenance manager that lives on site. as part of your benefits to them, maybe you're paying their cable bill, right? In addition to their salary or their wage or whatever. And that could be, a couple $100 a month.
Yeah.
Right? You should be requesting from the operator as part of the agreement, I want X amount of free cable accounts to be used on site. They used to, back in the day, owners would say, yep, and I want one at my house too.
Yeah, I was
and
going to say
operators
that.
and they would do that. They would do that, and they would give them out. Oh, and I want one for my family, and I want one for all of my partners in the investment. And they don't do that anymore. They kind of caught on to that.
Yeah.
But for your staff, free service, if you have a common room, clubhouse, fitness room,
that's a good idea.
Pool area, all of that, your office, you should be asking for complimentary or courtesy services. And they're not going to give out a ton of them, but you might get 1 or 2 or 3, depending on the size of your property. Again, if you don't ask, they're not going to just automatically give it to you.
Of course. And they add up. Like, let's just say when it's $1,000 a month, at 5 different places, they add up. Right.
Absolutely. So you add that to the revenue share and to the door fee, and pretty soon you're starting to see ways to generate additional income. And then the fourth is by buying bulk cable, internet, Wi-Fi service from the provider, and then offering it,
reselling with,
and then you resell it. So just like going to Costco and Sam's Club during COVID, you bought up a bunch of toilet paper, right?
Yeah, that was a big deal.
And filled up that closet. Yep. You do the same thing. You're buying cable, you're buying the services in bulk from the provider, but you're getting it at a 50 to 75% discount off of their retail rate. You turn around and offer that as an amenity. And we all know that those amenities are important to residents, especially telecommunication services are becoming very popular. You offer that, then you can buy it for $40 a unit, turn around and resell it at the property, or add an amenity fee or a tech fee for $70. You keep the 30, pay the cable company their 40. You just pocketed $30 a unit. So that adds up really, really fast. You take that in addition to the other 3 ways of generating revenue, you take all 4. Now you're starting, and then now let's say you have 5 properties or 10 properties, or some of our clients have, 20 or 30 properties. That adds up really, really fast.
That's good. No, that's great. So one question I have with the bulk buying, that does the property owner or the property themselves have to be compliant to certain state or federal regulations? Aren't you becoming a reseller or something?
No. So you're not actually reselling the service too, and that you do have to be careful of.
Right.
The contracts with the provider will even say in there, the owner is, I'm paraphrasing here, but it'll say owner is not allowed to resell the service because you're not a franchised cable operator.
Right.
But there's nothing there. It's not illegal for you to add a tech fee or an amenity fee or increase the rent. That's perfectly legal, and you can pass the cost on to the resident in a creative way, and you're not in breach of the contract. You're not in breach of any laws. But if you were to buy it in bulk and then send them a bill for, here's your cable bill, yes, you could not do that. That is illegal, because then you are actually reselling the service. So the way around it is you charge a tech fee or amenity fee, perfectly legal.
Got it. No, thank you for answering that, because I wanted to make sure that we understand that point. So one more question. Can you, so we went through all the 4 key ways.
Right.
Are you able to share an example or 2 recently how one of the, property owners, started generating ancillary income, like an example of numbers, if you can?
Well, so we recently did a deal for a property owner, a client who had, I want to say it was like 200 and around 250 units. They put in bulk cable, a managed Wi-Fi, which I know we want to talk about, a managed
Okay.
Wi-Fi
Yeah,
system
we'll
from that
get there
property.
then.
And the cable operator paid them $400 a door.
Oh, wow. So that
And
was upfront.
and that was up front. They didn't get the revenue share because the internet and the video was all, well, they did on the phone, but the video and the internet was already at 100%. So yeah, and then they had a fitness room and a business center kind of set up. So we got them free internet and free a TV that went up in the business center.
Right.
And in the fitness room, they had a TV on the wall
Right, of
with
course.
a cable box, and we got those 2 accounts free.
Okay, no, that's great.
So you start to, I mean, you add up the
Yes.
money, and you can see that the savings is significant.
Yeah, it's not only just the revenue, recurring revenue, but it's also the money you save. That's goes far.
It does, absolutely.
So now that you mentioned managed Wi-Fi, what is it?
Right. Managed Wi-Fi. So it's kind of the buzzword everybody has been talking about. And
I remember a company, it's an Australian company. I met them at one of the conference. I think it's called BlockFi or something.
Okay.
And they were selling something similar. But yeah, if you can explain it for us.
So there's internet access, but then there's Wi-Fi. So the typical provider will put a modem in every unit, retail or bulk, and the resident uses, just like in your house, you're going to get access to that. You're going to log on, and you're going to have your password and your access to your modem and router, right, in your Wi-Fi router in your unit. Managed Wi-Fi is where a provider will bring fiber fed to your property, and then they will put in using fiber and Ethernet, build out a network in your property that you ultimately own. Okay, they're going to build it out. They're going to spend the capital to do it, so they're not going to charge you any money.
So they spend the entire capital.
And we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for them to build out a network, especially in a real large property.
Because just getting fiber on my property, they are asking me to call an electrician. I need to put another line, all those. So just a residential property, it would cost me like a couple grand. Talking, about a large multifamily property, that could be significant.
Oh yeah. And you can put managed Wi-Fi in it's really big in senior properties. The senior properties are really taken off. And a lot of people think, well, senior, yeah, but
why do they need internet?
but they do. That's just the thing. It's just the opposite. It's really big, especially, they want to have it not only for the residents, but when guests come to visit. And with COVID, everybody is home, and we learned a lot. Now that's going to change, obviously, as we start to vaccinate and get the country open back up. But we learned a lot, and you want to have a network that is robust and multi-use that you can use at your property to have not only a managed Wi-Fi, and I'll explain it in a second, but smart technology that you can deploy on your property as well. So the provider will build out a network using fiber and Ethernet and access points, APs or access points throughout the property. Maybe one access point per unit, might be one for every 2 units. And then you have a personal area network in your unit per user to use. And then you can also take that. So if you go to the pool, if you roam about the property, it's literally as if you're in your unit. So that personal area network follows you throughout the property. So you could be in any part of the property, and let's say you could print a document, pull up your phone, pull up your laptop, print a document to your printer back in your room, back in your unit. It allows full portability, and it's not bringing in, say, a 1 gig fiber circuit to a property and then everybody shares that
Yeah, I was going
bandwidth.
there. Are they
It's
all
not.
sharing?
No,
Okay.
the provider using software technology will manage the bandwidth. It's like think about a 10-lane highway and everybody getting on and everybody trying to drive. You literally put all the cars in their own lane so they're not colliding with each other. And it's slick. And you put in a managed Wi-Fi system in your property and virtually all your headaches go away, because it's easy to onboard. Residents can usually, most systems handle up to about 10 devices. So you get a dedicated network for your user, for your resident. It's like a bubble. Think of it that way. And you get dedicated speed up to whatever contracted speed that you purchase through the cable operator or the phone operator or whoever the provider may be. You get that dedicated speed for that unit or that user versus everybody sharing bandwidth. Great for student housing properties, because they're gaming and things like that. And then if you want to add smart technology to that network, it's already there. It's already in place.
So
It's
what do
really
you
slick.
mean by adding smart technology?
Yeah, so smart technology, like having smart thermostats, Internet of Things,
Okay.
IoT. So
Yes.
smart thermostats, water metering,
Lock.
keyless locks.
Yes.
Yep. Which again, a lot of your properties are going that way, and not just your high-end A-class, 600 unit kind of properties that are like a resort. C-class properties are putting in smart technology too.
Oh, really?
Because,
So you are seeing that?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. A small 20 unit property will put in go with a smart technology because they don't have to manage keys anymore.
Right.
They put in smart technology and smart locks, and now they don't have all this hassle of dealing with keys and sending out maintenance people to
Yeah,
switch out
losing
locks.
keys and then locksmith
All
and then
goes
every
away.
time the tenant moves out, it's just easy to wipe it off and start over.
Yep. So
Okay.
this technology is not just for the big high-end properties. It's not. You might not put all the bells and whistles in a 20-unit property like you would in a 200-unit property. Your situation might be a little bit more unique, and you might start with, putting in smart locks, which I see a lot of small properties. That's where they start, or water metering. They put that in. Video surveillance, even, cameras and things like that. So
yes, yeah, if you have managed Wi-Fi all over the property, it's very easy. Instead of going through all those wires for the video surveillance, it's just easy to put nice wireless cameras.
Yeah. And, that's what we do is we educate and help our clients find solutions that fit exactly their particular need, and not try to sell them we personally don't sell anything. We advise clients. We find them the vendors and the partners to bring services to their property. We, seek proposals and bids based on what they want to do. That's the value. That's where our value is. We're a consultant.
Okay, got it. And I'm still an IT consultant as well, so I understand where you're coming from. So basically, the property owner or HOA or whomsoever reaches out to you that these are the things we want, and then you pretty much consult and tell them, okay, you may not want this, you should get this, and then you reach out to the vendors or the technology providers, to get bids, and you do the negotiation on behalf of the
Correct.
owners, property managers.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. And we also already have, because we've been doing this for so long, we have pre-selected vendors that we recommend based off of our experience with them too. I don't want to
Right.
recommend just any company who I'm not familiar with
Right.
to one of my clients. I would rather recommend to them a certain vendor, or give them 3 vendors to choose from, or whatever. But I want to bring people that I've personally vetted and know and understand their service, and that I trust, and they're going to provide value, versus just some company, some guy, 2 guys in a truck with a satellite dish, right?
Right. No, that's good. Hey, so let me throw you a curveball. This
Ouch.
would be the last question before we, take a break. What are the cons of going this way, right? Well, of course, we discuss about all the pros, right? Because when we acquire a multifamily or mobile home park, we usually want to look at that everything is paid by the tenants, right? Because we try to, even a lot of time, the water meter is one master meter, then we want to sub-meter. We
Right.
want to do the same thing with all the utilities. So by taking over, let's say, cable or internet, managing that for every tenant, wouldn't this backfire? Like, now we are taking over. Instead, usually we try to, go the other way, right? So have you, I'm just wondering.
You know what? It really doesn't. And here's why. If you go with a company that you trust, and I don't mean using a consultant like this. I mean finding a provider that you know and trust, especially if they're going to put in managed Wi-Fi. Once you partner with somebody, there really is no way for it to backfire. Where I've seen things backfire is a provider doing a terrible job in provisioning the service for the client, for the owner. And then the resident ends up having a lousy experience. And then the resident goes to the management office and starts to complain, and they're ready to move out because they had a terrible experience. That's when you start to see problems, and that's when it starts to backfire.
But let's
Or owners who try to take on too much, and they try to do everything themselves, versus hiring the right company or companies to put everything in. I had a client recently who they wanted to put in managed Wi-Fi, but they were dead set on using this other company. And I don't know if it was a friend or they had a relationship, but they were dead set on using this IT company to do all of the cabling and all of the wiring, versus and they thought they were going to get by cheaper, probably,
right.
versus letting the provider, they're going to include it all. That's going to be a part of the cost. They were trying to, buy down that rate. Yeah, I can have my brother-in-law's got his own company. I mean, I'm not saying it was, but they think that they're going to save a bunch of money, when in actuality, it ended up costing them more money because the person they were using did a lousy job, Yeah. So, it's usually when people try to cut corners, they go for the cheapest company. Well, I can find this cheaper somewhere. Yeah, you might be able to, but guess what? You're going to have a bad experience, and then it's going to backfire.
So no, that's a great point. But my another question is that, let's say, the owner takes on all of this, and now it's owner's responsibility to pay the provider. But let's say the tenant stops paying, and now we need to evict. Now it's not only the rent, but there is the managed Wi-Fi fee, the cable fee. It may be the what. So all of this can start adding up. Let's say you have to evict 15 tenants, and there is eviction moratorium. You are in a state like, my state, California, where you can't evict people for like 6 to 12 months. Then wouldn't this be an additional expense? Right?
It would. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there is no getting around that.
Right.
Most managed Wi-Fi providers also have a feature built in that you can take a resident's internet speed and throttle it way down.
Right, of course.
If they're not paying their rent, to kind of encourage them. And, you're going to keep your internet service throttled down until you pay your rent or get caught up. But I know during COVID times, it wasn't residents being deadbeats and just,
Yes.
not paying. There were, very tragic situations where they couldn't pay their cable bill. They couldn't pay their rent or anything
Right.
like that. But that's a flip side there too. Now, instead of the resident not being able to pay their cable bill, maybe the owner is, kind enough to keep, since they're providing the internet service, the resident has internet access during hard times. I mean, so you could put a positive spin on it that way
Right.
too. But
Right.
yes, at the end of the day, the owner is responsible ultimately to pay that bill. And that is why that's usually the first, barrier to an owner jumping in and
Yes.
doing bulk services. Like, well, I don't want to be in the cable business.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And it isn't for everybody. I'm going to
Yes.
not sit here and say that everybody should do
Should
it.
do this.
But you should make sure that you're considering all options and don't automatically discount it just because of that one reason.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, no, this was awesome. Thank you, Todd. So let's take a quick break. And after the break, we will go through the same 5 questions I ask every guest.
You're listening to the Wealth Matters Podcast. The Wealth Matters Podcast. For more info about what we do, check us out at wealthmatters.com. It's wealth, WEALTH, matters, MATRS.com.
Welcome back to Wealth Matters Podcast. Todd taught us a lot about generating additional income through telecom contracts. Todd, are you ready for fire round?
Oh no, I hope I studied.
Would you be changing any business or investment strategy after this pandemic is over?
Well, kind of what we talked about at the beginning of the show is we're seriously looking at getting into passive investing in multifamily. So, and it's just not so much because of the coronavirus, but it's just something that never really thought about doing.
No, that's great. Favorite real estate or finance or any other related book?
Oh, Think and Grow Rich is
That's great book.
Yeah.
Napoleon Hill. You can't.
That's kind of
go
like
wrong.
my Bible.
Yes, no, that's a great book. Any tool or website you recommend or you cannot live without?
Oh gosh. That's a tough one. LinkedIn for sure, I guess.
Yes, that's how we got connected.
Yeah, I mean that's a must-have tool to have.
Yes, I agree. Any advice for beginner investors?
I would say don't wait. Young or old, don't wait. Learn, which I'm in the process of educating myself on how all of this works and what does syndication mean and what's passive versus active. But really don't wait. It seems like, and all these asset classes are great. Mobile home, senior, traditional, value add.
That's awesome.
Yep.
How do you give back?
Wow. I'm a Christian, so through God and my church, but also my wife and I are very. First of all, I'm not one to like flaunt that either. It's kind of personal, so I don't like to, put it out there. But my wife and I are also very passionate about the local humane society. So we give a lot because animals are always been a part of our family, and there's a lot of neglect, and it's sad. So we try to give there as much as we can in the way of resources and time.
That's awesome. Thank you, Todd, for your time.
Thank you.
How can my listeners reach out to you?
So LinkedIn profile, check out my profile. It's kind of like the mini website. My contact information is listed there, but yeah, email tthorpe@mduconsultinggroup.com, and my cell phone number 608-669-6514.
Perfect. This was great. Take care, Todd.
Alpesh, you too.
Thanks for listening to the Wealth Matters podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes so others can enjoy the show too. Have a great week and happy investing!